My name is Blair Peterman. This is my 77 VW Rabbit, and we're at Summit Point, West Virginia at the Fastivus event. And I've had Volkswagens pretty much for the past 23 years since I started driving. I like all cars, but I like cars with a story. And to me, the story of the car is sometimes to me more important than the car itself. This car really drew me because of the story. So the car was listed in Craigslist in Detroit for sale as a original owner, 1977 Blue Rabbit. It obviously been in a garage for around 20 years, so covered in dust, and like with any car in a garage, it gets covered with boxes and stuff stored on top of it. My buddy Ben, who went to get the car, the selling point of it was when he opened the doors, he could tell the interior was mint. The mileage at 19,000 was, he could tell it was a true low mileage car with the documentation. And he met the daughter of the original owner. The original owner had passed away, and he saw the car in the barn in current condition. It didn't look great, but was confident it could be restored. The car came with a stack of every single receipt since brand new. I have the original tags, the original dealer frame, and all documents from the car since brand new. That's where my buddy Paul got his hands on it. Kind of made it what it is for the most part today. Is the original paint on the car. It's Miami Blue. Had hopes that the paint could be saved and restored to look great again. The engine bay was repainted, but the exterior paint on the car is all 100% original. So the car was completely wet sand buffed, and all the paint correction was done, and then it's ceramic coated, and it presents amazing for 44-year-old paint. The original, a gas motor, was a single overhead cam, 8-valve, and it was automatic transmission. The motor in it now is a 16-valve with dual Weber carbs, and it's been converted to 5-speed manual. The reason this motor's in this car is my buddy Ben, who originally got this car, he had a Jetta that had been totaled. The drivetrain in this car now is from the totaled Jetta. It only had 19,000 miles when it was purchased and pulled out of the barn. Now the car has around 26,000 miles, so it's had about 7,000 miles put on it in the past, I guess about seven years or so. Mileage doesn't really matter. It's not about keeping the miles low, but if I know it's gonna rain or anything, I'm not gonna drive it. Kind of hangs out in the garage and comes out on those nice days. So the interior of the car is completely original, unrestored. It's in fantastic shape. Even inside the door jambs, the dealership paper stickers with pencil writing are still in the door jambs, which usually as soon as they get wet, they fall off. But it just goes a testament of how low mileage the car is and how great shape it's in. The interior of this car looks like it's never been sat in. The carpet's not worn, nothing's worn at all. So I think once you tell people or they know it's original, they look at it and then have a new appreciation for it. Yeah, so for the wheels, I was torn on what wheels to do. I really had my heart set on converting the OEM 13-inch steel wheels to 3-piece. I'd never seen it in person. I knew some guys in Europe had done the conversion, but there was no real rule book on how to do it. One of my good friends in Atlanta, Georgia, his name's Ryan, he wanted to take on the project and took the original 13 by 4.5-inch steel wheels and cut the centers out of the steel wheel. He had a process of welding a band onto that centerpiece and then drilling it out and using BBS RS parts to make it a 3-piece. So the wheels went from a 13 by 4.5, and now they're a 15 by 7.5. And it really pays homage to the car. It's the OEM wheel, OEM center cap, and to the average person that doesn't know the car, or doesn't know Volkswagens, they probably just think it's an original wheel, which is good in my book. Yeah, the motor is actually an ABF 16-valve, so it originally came in a European Mark III. Internals are pretty stock. Originally a fuel-injected motor, but this has dual Weber carburetors, kind of fit the period, and it also makes for a super clean engine bay. So basically in early 2013, both this car and the Jetta were put side by side. And the Jetta was stripped and this car was stripped down and pretty much put them into one car. Only difference was at the time when the engine was out of this car, the engine bay was shaved and repainted. There were things on this car that had never been taken apart that, we were the first people to pull it apart. I remember taking the spare tire out of this car, and the spare tire probably had never been taken out of the spare tire well. I learned something new. The factory jack was bungee corded onto the steel wheel, and there's these little pieces of carpet that went between the jack and the steel wheel so it didn't vibrate or make noise. I never knew that was the case, but until he pulled out of this car, because it's how it came from the factory, and it was neat to see stuff like that. We did paint the engine bay because we shaved all the holes, but the original engine bay, it was a bit dingy, and typically like right behind the downpipe, the paint gets burned off. There's a little bit of like surface rust there where the paint's burned off, but otherwise there was no other rust. It's simple. There's 3 mods. It's wheels, suspension, and the motor swap, and otherwise really stock car. I can't tell you how many Rabbit GTIs I put cabriolet front ends on and, you know, circle headlight converted them and put small taillights on them. You know, Rabbit GTI, which I considered ugly 20 years ago because it looked like a Dodge Omni. Now I really, really appreciate a stock one. And I think about all the ones that my friends and I chopped up, and I'm like, oh man, like, I wish we can go back and just not do that. But at the time, that's what we did. And I just look at things a little bit differently now, I guess. Yeah, the big thing is the values. Like, I used to buy running, driving Mark 1s for under a grand, maybe paid $1,500 for a nice one. Now a nice Mark 1 GTI, like 10 grand plus, and they get out of control now. So cars that I've had in the past, I can't afford, or I can't bring myself to purchase those cars now. I've had this car for a little over 3 years now. I don't plan to sell it. I will always have a Mark 1, and this one is on the list to keep forever. I had a 98 Ginster Yellow GTI that was featured in PVW in 2002. 19 years old when that came out. That was like a dream come true. My second PVW feature was a Audi Fox. It was a 1978. Had a 1.8T in it. That was featured in PVW in 2013. You know, I've owned different cars over the years, but I've always been drawn back to the Volkswagen community. I've always, at all times, had a Volkswagen or two, or multiple cars. The friends I've made 20 years ago, I still talk to. You know, we may not see each other for 6 months or a year, even 2, but we get back together at a car show or an event, it's like no time has passed at all. Every single one of my vacations is a car show. It's car shows or vintage racing events, but my vacations for the year are pre-planned out. I know exactly when they are, and they're all related to some type of car event.